My name is Frode Nordahl. I'm a senior engineer in Canonical. Hope you're enjoying OVS Cone so far. I missed the travel and the ice cream in the break. Those of you who were here last year know what I mean. If we all do our part, we probably can meet again next year. Let's all hope for that. Why do you want to migrate to OVN? It's a virtual networking for vSwitch built by the vSwitch community. It's cloud management system agnostic, has different scalability and efficiency characteristics, and it does a better job of same default configurations. And then most importantly, it excels at hardware offload support. So what do you need to think about for planning migration? Versions, go to OpenStack Azure on Focal or Bionic, and then do the migration from OVS to OVN. Make sure to use the vSwitch firewall driver prior to starting the migration. Otherwise, we will not be able to clean up the IP tables rules that Neutron left behind. You need to assess your MTU requirements. OVN uses has a larger overhead in their use of Geneva tunnels. So if you're already maximizing your MTU configuration, you need to reduce the MTU on instances. There's a lot of ways to do this, and there are some details in the documentation linked at the end. Make sure that you have free IP addresses in all your subnets, because OVN migration will create new ports and allocate IP addresses for the metadata service and the router SNAT external IP. And also make sure that your DNS configuration is correct, because OVN does DNS for instances differently. And now it's time for a demo. Here we have a small 3-node cloud with hardware offloading enabled. Because of the available bandwidth in my actual network, I'm going to use 2 instances on the same compute, just to demonstrate the difference between layer 3 routing performance between the traditional ML2+OVS driver and the OVN driver. So first, let's do a control test. This is between 2 instances on the same host with hardware offloaded port. As we can see, we get about 30-40 gigabits a second. And bear in mind that this is only one single stream and no tuning has been done. Now let's connect to a instance that is in a different subnet, which means that the traffic has to be routed through a layer 3 router. On ML2+OVS, this is done in a namespace by the Linux kernel, and this is not hardware offloadable. And as you can see, the performance difference is quite stark. This is still the same host. As you saw in the initial bandwidth test, we have a number of instances running. And we will now start migration. I have prepared a bundle, which is similar to the topology we already have, but with OVN instead of the OVS charms. And we will apply this on top of the model now. And now we're done deploying the OVN components. Instances are still up, nothing has changed. Now let's perform the migration. First, we pause the data plane components. Wait for that to settle. Then we migrate the MTU of all the running networks. This is to allow for the overhead of the Geneva network, which is larger than the VXLAN or GRE. Now we enable the OVN driver. Wait for that to settle. All right. And now we pause the Neutron API to prepare for the initial sync to OVN. Run the sync. Now that's done. Now we do a offline migration of the network types in Neutron. Neutron does not allow you to change the type of a network. And so we have a script that does this for you. And now we're going to resume the Neutron API. Wait for that to settle. That's done. Now we're ready to migrate the data plane. Now that we have cleaned up after Neutron, we are ready to start the OVN chassis. This starts up the OVN controller on all the nodes, and now the OVN controller will configuration from the southbound database and program all the flow rules on the hypervisors. Now let's reconfirm that the performance is the same as before, with 2 instances on the same host in the same subnet. We still get between 30 and 40 gigabits a second. Now let's connect to the instance in a different subnet. And as you can see, even with different subnets, with OVN and hardware offloading, you still get the same performance. Thank you for watching. Are there any questions?